who among us is not regularly trafficking in some form of difficult conversation? Even if that conversation is largely happening internally. Even if that conversation is never being had. That's still a really difficult conversation if there's some disharmony between me and another, but we're not able to talk about it. So, in short, all of us are touching this in some way. So there are a million different ways we can approach it. What I'd like to focus on today is an old kind of cliche piece of wisdom that has helped me a lot. And it's the old expression, you can have harmony or you can be right. And, I've heard it said a million ways, like you can be happy or you can be right. But I like to say you can have harmony or you can be right. Right out of the gate, that important reframe is important to me. Because when I'm talking about my interactions with other people, I don't necessarily want to be happy all the time. This is a dangerous fantasy that I think we live in as human beings. Too many movies end, right, with the heroes walking off into the sunset, to be forever happy, right? These Cinderella stories. But that's not real life. Real life is, right, when I look at the relationships that I've had for decades, right, with my friends and my family, the reality is, oh man, a lot of the time I'm unhappy. Right? A lot of the time they're doing something that causes me suffering, or I'm doing something that causes me suffering, or we together are operating in a way that's causing us both suffering. And so this idea that I can practice my way to being happy with other people all the time is a dangerous fallacy that I want to start and debunk right there. That's just not how it works. One of my oldest friends has been happily married for, decades. And I asked him one time, I was like, oh, how do you two get along so well? And he was like, oh, we don't have unreasonable expectations. He's like, I think the reason why so many people are getting divorced so quickly these days is because they think they're going to be happy with each other, with their partner, 80, 90% of the time. He's like, that's unreasonable. I'm a completely different person than my partner. We have different families, different educations, different life experiences, different socioeconomic and cultural backgrounds. He's like, this is just not reasonable. And so he explained, he was like, what I'm shooting for is that we are quote unquote happy, like getting along, enjoying each other 50% of the time. He's like, if we're good 50% of the time, we're crushing. We're crushing. And, when he gave me that teaching many years ago, I wasn't ready to hear it. Like, those numbers sounded morbid to me. Like, that number of 50% sounded so defeatist and depressing. I was like, no, I want more than that. I want to get along better and more smoothly and more consistently than that. But I've had some time now to look more honestly, with less attachment to old idea, at the reality of my long-term relationships. And the reality is that 50% is really good. So that's why I say that I like to focus on harmony, not so much happiness. Now, of course, in our tradition, happiness is defined as a kind of harmony. Happiness is defined as a coin with joy on one side and suffering on the other. And when those two come together in a balanced way, that's happiness. And so you could say that happiness is synonymous with harmony in our tradition because it includes suffering, right, and a healthy balance between excitement and suffering, or joy and suffering. But at a very deep level, like that's kind of a new teaching for most of us. It certainly is for me. Most of us grew up hearing the word happy and thinking about, ice cream and parties and smiling, right? Not too many of us grew up hearing the word happy and thinking like, happy. Oh yeah, the first thing that comes into my mind is compromise. The first thing that comes to my mind is having low expectations. And so, yeah, we're playing a bit of a semantics game here, but it's an important one. Especially if I'm going to base the whole talk on it. I want to be clear that I'm not talking about the choice between standing our ground and being correct in a difficult conversation and joy. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is we have a choice between really standing our ground and staying attached to our view and harmony. And harmony. That's the choice.